country and only have jobs here in the United States and no jobs elsewhere, how are we going to sell anything to someone in China or India if they can't make enough money to buy our goods? I mean, we have tried in the past protectionism. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I'll say this, if you don't allow goods and services to flow across sovereign territorial lines, you'll have armies that cross them. I mean, that's the history of the world. And so if you believe that what we ought to do is pull ourselves into some sort of protectionism, I don't agree with you. I don't beg, you don't beggar your neighbor. You don't beggar your neighbor. The way that you create a viable economy is that you produce things that they want, they produce things you want, you are competitive. The only way we're going to be able to compete with those other countries who by population are far larger than we are, is if we have incentives to invest and take risk to make money in this country, which creates jobs. I mean, look, one of the big arguments, as I said, back in the 1980s was over national industrial policy with the Japanese. The Japanese program was that, look, the government knows best how to pick winners and losers at the beginning. And so the government, by national industrial policy, was going to direct capital investment rather than the marketplace. What does that mean? That means in Japan, for instance, just by way of illustration, they'd say we can pick out of these hundreds of companies and people who like to try something, we can pick out the 3 that are going to win. And they're the only ones that can compete. In America, we allow all 100 or 200 or 300 to compete. We know by statistics that what, about 50% of all small businesses will fail within the first 3 years? Those are people investing money. Why would they invest money if the chances that they're going to succeed are about 50%? Because the prize at the end of the run is large enough to encourage them to keep going. If you lose that, you're not going to have those people out there willing to risk their capital. I mean, I'm not the one that invests to create jobs. I don't have enough money to do it. You know, the terrible thing is the people who have more money than I do are the ones that invest that create the jobs. And the way to encourage them is to have the kinds of policies that allow them to take risks. And if they fail, all right, I'm not one of those who believes you're too big to fail. They ought to be allowed to fail. And if they succeed, they ought to be allowed to succeed. So the way I go is that you allow people to attempt to succeed. If they succeed, they can, in fact, benefit well. It's like the Olympics. If you say nobody gets a gold medal, everybody gets a participatory medal, you're not going to have records set. And I just happen to think, and I know you have a difference of opinion with me, I happen to think that because someone is successful, I shouldn't automatically assume that I should take more of their money than percentage-wise they're taking from me. It's just, you know, maybe it's a fault of mine. But I just remember when I saw the rioters on the streets of London. Remember what they said? We're showing the rich what we can do when we want to do it. And they said, why are you attacking these businesses? Because they're rich. Why are they rich? Because they're businesses. That's the ultimate conclusion of class warfare. And we can argue about differences of opinions, but the idea about class warfare bothers me a great deal. And look, I'll bet you Warren Buffett doesn't vote for me, wouldn't vote for me, and a lot of these super rich wouldn't vote for me, so I'm not doing it because I'm going to get their vote. Yes, sir, way in the back.
You were talking about
Well, wait, can we get the colonel first? Just a second, I'll get your name.
Congressman, as ever, I agree with you on the majority of what you stand for. But I'm a young 93-year-old senior, and I'm still working. I have a ranch, an orchard, and cattle. So I'm not standing up there that people older, I don't think older people work enough. We got a lot of talent. Because they got some damn many good thoughts. I'd like to see them more productive than they are, and participate more. What I'm going to say is this, 2 items. The first, I brought this up to you before, and all I'm asking you, you can comment it naturally, but I'd like to see us go off the gold standard, go to the gold standard, and it might make China have a floating yuan. It might, may not. financial people in Congress and really study this thing, because Roosevelt used it when he came off to his own WPA and so forth. Now, the next thing is, I want to digress one thing, what we need in our schools again, and I had a wonderful teacher in civics, I think they call it social services or something like that. And she taught us very things that you're bringing up today. The teachers need to know more about our Constitution and everything. And I had a most wonderful teacher, and she was a PhD, and she refused to teach in college. She said the formative period is in high school, and that's where she taught until she finally retired. And she had a business on the side, incidentally, too, a gift shop, a beautiful one. Now, the first thing is, if we go to the gold standard, I think, again, it might, I don't know, it might help us, because we got the largest hoard of gold in the world, in Fort Knox, as you all know. But the second point is, this is something that I posted on, but our forests are in bad shape with underbrush, particularly in the west, in our forests. The old CCC, the Conservation Corps, did marvelous work in the summer. They got all that slash piled up and they burned in the winter. Since that went out of existence, look at the terrible shape our forests are in today, and I would like to see a resurrection of the Civilian Conservation Corps, because first of all, it would take these kids 18 to 25, they're the hardcore in the inner cities, we could give them that employment, teach them work in the mornings, the afternoons, education, and also teach them skills. And this would be, to me, the one thing that I would approve of the federal government resuming.
I thought you wanted to sign up for the Civilian Conservation Corps. Remove the age limit. When I called on Colonel West, I thought it was the other Colonel West, but he's in the Congress, but you're about the same. Let me just say a couple things. One is the gold standard. One of my best friends who passed away 2 years ago was Jack Kemp, and Jack used to always be talking about going back on the gold standard. And so I've heard hundreds of speeches by Jack on the gold standard. I've heard others who suggest that for various reasons it would be impractical for us to do that, but the underlying assumption of the gold standard is that you have a marker against which currency is determined, and that you therefore maintain the value of the currency rather than inflating it or deflating it, but primarily in our lifetime we've been concerned with inflation. An alternative has been suggested that you use a bucket of commodities or basket of commodities, gold being one of them, that would give you your marker as opposed to just gold. I'm not an economist, but I understand the argument, and I do believe this. I think we ought to have a greater dedication to the protection of the value of currency than we do now. The Federal Reserve is supposed to be responsible for maintaining the value of our currency, but it also has been given other obligations which seem to be inconsistent with it. One of them is under the Humphrey-Hawkins Act. It is supposed to deal with monetary policy in a way that affects levels of unemployment. And that can be very different. They may say, well, in terms of our view of how you keep unemployment down, you inflate the dollar. You put out many, many, many more dollars. And then the value of your currency, I think, ultimately goes down. We have the big argument right now. They call it, they use a fancy term for it, easing. Quantitative easing 1, 2, and 3. You know what that means? They're going to print more money than they ever have before. And they are doing that. I've been in meetings with Mr. Bernanke where we asked him about that. We said, isn't that inflationary? Because again, I took Economics 101, and learn what the value of currency is, and how you inflate currency is you throw out more dollars than you have increases in goods and services. And so then relative to a particular good and services, you have more dollars chasing it, so the price goes up. That's great if you're the one printing the money. If you're on fixed income, it's terrible, because the dollar in your pocket is now worth less than it was a day before or a year before. And you can't chase those goods and services in the same way. At least that's the way I understand it. So we posed that question to Mr. Bernanke, and his response was, no, we know how to control this. If it gets out of control, we know how to draw back. And besides, it's not the volume of money, it's the volatility of money. Volume means the number of dollars out there. Volatility is whether it's cycling in the system. So I said, aha, this is my thought. So you're saying you're putting out all these dollars to stop the economy from going down, but it's only non-inflationary so long as it's not being circulated, and if it's not being circulated, it's not affecting the economy. I mean, I don't understand it, you know? Their thought, I guess, is once it starts circulating, they know how to take enough of it back that it's not going to be inflationary. That's a big risk, I think, we're taking out there. And because you're not on a gold standard, you can do that, because you're not maintaining the value of that currency relative to the dollar, right? So I think there's some wisdom in what you say. I just don't know how we get there. One of the ways you could do it is you could say the Federal Reserve is solely responsible for maintaining the value of the currency. And other kinds of policies would deal with the state of the economy, inflation, unemployment, and so forth. Because right now, even with this tremendous surge in money, no one would suggest that it's had a tremendous effect on the unemployment rate, at least, unless people say it would be far worse. And I'm not sure you can make that argument. So I think you make a good argument there. Secondly, with respect to the Constitution and understanding the system, one of the other things that Justice Scalia said is that every American ought to be reading the Federalist Papers. Everybody know what the Federalist Papers are? Yeah. All right. Written by 3 of our founding fathers for the purpose of convincing people that they ought to ratify the Constitution. Has been said by some, the greatest single set of works dealing with political theory in the history of civilization. Justice Scalia pointed out in European universities they study it. I would say a lot of our students don't know about it. What Justice Scalia said, not only should you have a copy of the Constitution, everybody should have a copy of the Federalist Papers, and it should not be pristine, it should be dog-eared from you going over. And if there were one thing I would suggest to our educational system, I'm not educated, but one thing I suggest is, let's start reading the Federalist Papers and see what it says. See what it says. One of the things one of our founding fathers said was that our Constitution, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially this is what he said. He said our Constitution presupposes a virtuous people that would be insufficient for any other. Meaning that the Constitution does set up a system of self-governance with a protection of individual rights, but unless people approach their participation in society from a standpoint of virtue, it doesn't work. Interestingly enough, some of the greatest writers on the free market system said the very same thing. Adam Smith, not only talking about the free market system, but talking about the necessity for virtues for those participants in it. I think sometimes we forget that. I think those people work in the free market system and people work in the government, and individual citizens. I'll remember what our founding fathers suggested to us. All right. Oh, yes, I had called on.
You mentioned Medicare briefly in your prior statement, and I would like to know what your position or what you are trying to do. In 1970, I understand that when Medicare was inaugurated, it cost the government about $17 billion for the entire United States.